Hey everyone, how's it going? So, a couple days ago, I decided to cut off my really toxic and abusive parents, whom I spent almost 20 years growing up with. The reason why I'm making this video is to kind of give a little introduction for the series of videos that I'm about to produce. And the first thing that I want to address is why I'm doing this. So, to kind of start off before going into the actual reasons why, I wanted to just say that I'm not looking for any sort of reaction or like sympathy or pity or, these kinds of things that you kind of say to people when you hear about their really screwed up life story. I just wanted to make these videos to kind of shine some light into a topic that a lot of people are unwilling to talk about, even when they've been in this situation. Especially if you grew up in an abusive household, many people are not willing to talk about it. They may be still emotionally scarred from it. They might think that it's socially unacceptable to talk about, and that's why things like this kind of grow and grow and become increasingly common without anyone knowing about it or even doing anything about it. I want to make these videos to kind of expose this little secret world that I grew up in, where I have a dad who a lot of people on the outside, like from outside of my childhood home, claims is the nicest, most quiet man that they've ever met, right? And that's what psychopaths like this person are like. They put on this persona when they're outside of the house. No one has a single clue how violent, physically as well as mentally and emotionally abusive this man called my father has been through the 20 years that I grew up in his house. And I wanted to give some insight onto this. A lot of people who grew up in normal, functional families are simply unable to digest any of this. Some people might look at me like I'm crazy for telling them all this stuff. They think that these things that I describe about my childhood and my parents are things that just human beings won't do, because that's not normal at all. And I just wanted to, bring some attention to what it's really like out there in this little abusive bubble, because it's not every day that people talk about it. And I'm the insider over here. I will share every single detail on what happened in my life. I have really good memory. It's not even photographic. It's probably videographic. I remember every single detail down to when I was 3 years old, right? I remember going on this merry-go-round in this restaurant and the way I behaved. I remember when I was 5, how my dad cheated on my mom, and when my mom called out my dad, he started getting really upset because my mom called him out, and he started getting all physically violent. And I remember trying to call the police, but I also had an enabler grandma who prevented me from calling the police. And of course, I was 5 years old. I was pretty intimidated by just making a phone call itself, right? So there's all of these things that a lot of people find crazy and unbelievable. But trust me, when you grew up in a really toxic, abusive household like I did, anything is possible. And I'm going to tell you everything that I know, everything that I grew up with, and how that's affected me throughout my entire lifetime, even up till today. And that's why I've been going to therapy, I've been talking to friends, I've been writing journals, and I'm now producing videos just to kind of get over this. Like I said, stuff like this all happened in the past. It's not something I can change. So I don't expect any sort of sympathy or pity or whatever, because what are you going to do about it? What am I going to do? There's nothing either of us can do but accept it as part of my history. And I really hope by making these videos that more people become aware of what it is like growing up in such abusive household. Like you can be abused not just physically, which is what my dad did a lot of times, but also mentally and emotionally, which both my parents did to me. By doing this, I hope that more people will become aware as to how commonplace these things are, and how it's perfectly okay to stand up for yourself, or tell your friend or your family who is affected by something like this that it's okay to stand up for yourself and try to get away from the situation, try to call the police, get some kind of legal governmental help to kind of intervene, because this is not a problem that the abused person is typically able to solve one-to-one with either the abusive parents or the abusive other household members. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of why I'm making these videos is because not only do people not think that things like these happen on a regular basis, there's also like a bunch of apologists that I've noticed who tell people like me things like, it's okay because it's your parents. It's okay because they gave birth to you. They gave you food and a place to live in and bought clothes for you. And I think that's just a complete and utter bullshit cop-out, because that's just the responsibility of a parent to a minor child. That's not any sort of thing that is special. Any grown-up person who has a kid will rightfully house, clothe, and feed the person. There's nothing special about that. And the thing is, these people try to make it normal. They try to normalize these issues as non-issues. And I've been told things like, it's okay to forgive them because it's your parents. It's okay to forgive them because that's your DNA, that's your family line, and all this other, bullshit excuses that don't really fly if you're talking about the person, if they were your friend or your spouse. Like, you would immediately tell that person who is the victim to either divorce the spouse or like cut the friend off if they behaved in the exact way that abusive parents behave. But when it's abusive parents themselves, no, it's perfectly fine. You don't need to divorce them. You don't need to kick them out of your life. You just need to accept them and forgive them. And that's what I can't tolerate, It's okay to forgive people for little mistakes that they make. Everyone makes mistakes. But it's not okay to forgive that amount of physical, emotional, mental abuse over the course of 2 decades. That's just way, way too much. And in the next couple of videos, I'm going to explain to you why it is that I think all this kind of behavior is unacceptable, along with the little details of every single incident that's happened throughout my life that is completely something that you won't find in a normal, functional family. That's it for now, and see you in the next videos. Bye now.